Hello and welcome to the Knights of Thanos' spoiler discussion of Avengers Infinity War. In this I'm going to be discussing some of my feelings for it and some of the questions viewers have sent in for me. So this is of course going to contain spoilers. This is your only chance, so go away and come back afterwards, because all of this, even if you don't mind spoilers, it will absolutely ruin the experience. So this is the last warning for that. So the first thing people have asked me is, who's my favourite character in the film? As you know, Doctor Strange wasn't on my top 10 MCU movie characters list that I did the day before I saw it. But in the film, he was my favourite character. And the reason for that was his character development, motivations, the way he acted, as well as how they utilised his powers and did a better Green Lantern than DC did with the character of Doctor Strange. And I really liked him. And as I'll discuss with his motivations on something that he does, I really, really appreciated that and liked what he did, and why they chose him and how they chose him for that. And that is why Doctor Strange was my favourite character in the film, as well as being played by Benedict Cumberbatch, my favourite actor, along with Tom Hardy. So that's why I liked the character of Doctor Strange. And talking of the list of my top 10 favourite MCU movie characters, I'd say after this film, Star-Lord was my number 7, but I think I'm going to take him off my top 10 list and put him in 11th place and put Doctor Strange in 7th place after how stupid Star-Lord was messing up them taking the gauntlet off Thanos. As it makes sense that he did it and I understand it, but for the sake of half the universe, was it worth it? No, it wasn't worth it. So that's why he's been relegated, because I like altruistic characters mainly, and him doing that, kind of not. And of course, Thanos, my favourite comic book villain, as I've said countless times. He's my favourite villain from the Marvel comics, and he's my favourite villain in the Marvel films, as he's what everyone wants from... most people want two different types of villains. They want the big powerhouse villain that's going to smash the shit out of the heroes, and they also want the psychological villains who have deep motivations and to why they want to do stuff. And he fits both those perfectly. So he is definitely my favourite, not just Marvel film villain, but probably my favourite comic book movie villain, as well as being my favourite comic book in comic form villain. And going off that, the Sentinel sent in a question of how do I feel Thanos? What do I feel that Thanos was feeling at the end of the film when he's in the farm looking out? Do I think he feels regret, satisfaction, relief, or joy, or all of them? I think he feels regret and satisfaction, because I don't think he wanted to wipe out half the life in the universe. I feel that he felt that he needed to do it, and he knew he had to do it. In his logic, he knew he had to do it, but he didn't want to do it, if that makes sense. So I feel that he has satisfaction that he did do it, but also regret that he had to do it. So that's how I think he felt. And Pro Pasty Pete after the film thought there was an issue with Thanos crying when before and after he has to kill Gamora. And he said, oh, the character just suddenly changes to be emotional. Well, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And if you look in the real world, Hitler, he obviously ordered the execution of millions of people, yet he found the production of veal and lamb absolutely abhorrent and was totally against it. So evil people do have emotional weaknesses that they do, which they're sensitive towards, which Thanos obviously was towards Gamora. So that's why he was crying, and it does make sense in terms of the film and the films. And the archivist asked, which death was the most emotional for me? It was Spider-Man, and it was the only one that made me cry in the cinema, and I wouldn't stop crying until the film ended. It was. I started tearing up when Bucky gets wiped out, but when Spider-Man does, I was like, no, because he's injured anyway, so he's hurt. So I didn't think straight away he was gonna go away, because he's already injured, but then you see him starting to flake, and I was like, no, and that's just the way that he goes into Tony Stark and Tony Stark hugs him. That's just what really got to me, and then I, of course, started crying. And I was in a Spider-Man costume as well, so yeah, that is when I can say I was sad, because I was sad that he died, even though he's probably going to come back. But that was the one that affected me the most, and then it was probably Gamora, because that's the permanent one. If they change that, I will be pissed. You can't see it, but right on the wall there, I have a poster of Gamora. So she was my second favorite Guardian after Star-Lord. So sad to see her go, and I think they chose the right way for her to go. And yeah, and then the third is Bucky, because he's the first. I think he's the first person you see going flaking, and I was like, what? No! And then that happened. So, and going on from that with everyone going, Doctor Strange, of course, went, which was kind of emotional for me, because he had obviously accepted that he was going to die, because he had seen in over 14 million possibilities. So he obviously knew in that scenario, or maybe every scenario, he was going to die. And he acknowledged that for the greater good. And now I'm going to go into why I feel, as you would have seen, as soon as I saw the film, as I woke up in the morning, I went and straight made the one of the memes that changed my mind memes. I did Doctor Strange was right to change my mind. There's two reasons for that. Scenario one, he knew that Thanos was going to win anyway, and he knew that more people would die trying to stop Thanos than the people that die from him actually completing it. And he weighed those up, and that's one scenario why he gave Thanos the Time Stone. Scenario two is that Doctor Strange knows that in order for the Avengers to win, Thanos, even in the one scenario that the Avengers win, half the universe dies, and that's how the Avengers win. And that's what I think's happened, and and going off from that is another two possibilities. I think he's done some sort of time loop, and that's why there's going to be time travel stuff in the next Avengers, and he's done some sort of loop stuff or trap for Thanos. Or, like I said, he knows that Tony Stark is the key to bringing everyone back and essentially defeating Thanos. And that's what I think the most likely one is. He knew that in order to stop Thanos, half the life had to be wiped out, so that's why he hands Thanos the Time Stone. And like I said, I feel that's very noble of him, and like I said, any character, it would be him. And the character that behaves most like themselves in the comics, I feel, was Doctor Strange. That's one of the reasons why I loved him so much in it. And it's exactly something that Doctor Strange would do in the comics. And people forget how smart he is. He is as smart as Tony Stark. So he obviously knew what he was doing. It's not like Loki, when Loki handed the Space Stone over. Doctor Strange knew exactly what he was doing. So I feel that there's going to be something to do with that. So some sort of time loop, or that in order for them to be stopped, in order for Thanos to be stopped, sorry, that half the life in the universe had to be wiped out, and he weighed up the costs. And yeah, and I also like how in this film there's lots of callbacks to Doctor Strange, like when he first fights, and when he fights Thanos along with Iron Man, Spider-Man, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's in the same style as when he's training with Mordo, and Mordo's like, fight like your life depends on it. And I felt a massive callback to that when he's fighting, and it's like his life depends on it as well as the life of the universe. And there's that callback. And then there's also the callback to what Mordo says when the debt must come due. So that it could be a link to that the debt to stop Thanos is half the life in the universe being wiped out. And like I said, Doctor Strange smart, he would have known that, and that's the only way of stopping him. And something that he says is, we are now entering the end game. That makes me think it's it's going to Doctor Strange's plan, is that we're in the end game, which could be that the events of Avengers 4 is what he means by we're going into the end game with what it's going to take to fight Thanos. And what's really interesting is I found this out afterwards. I thought about it when I first saw the film, but then I looked it up to check. And if, say, Captain America got the Infinity Gauntlet, he would only be able to use it to bring people back if he killed someone. Because he has to be able to even use the Soul Stone in the Gauntlet, you have to use it to kill someone you love. So what I think is, it's not... I know Bucky's gone, but hypothetically, if both of them were still there, in order for Cap to use the Infinity Gauntlet, he would say have to kill Bucky to be able to use the Soul Stone in conjunction with everything else. So what I feel is going to happen is maybe Nat or Bruce is going to have to kill one or another, or someone's going to have to kill someone they care about, or all the original Avengers sacrifice themselves in order so someone can use the Gauntlet to bring everyone back. And then that's where it's going, and that's where Doctor Strange meant by this is the end game, in that it's the end, or it's just the beginning of the end. So it's the last battle, or the beginning of the last battle, and the events of the first one don't really matter because of what's bigger at stake is in the next film. And going on from that, about what I think is going to happen in the next film, I think anyone that died from Thanos clicking his fingers is going to come back, but I feel that Loki, Heimdall, Gamora, and Vision are going to stay dead, and I hope they stay dead, because otherwise all the emotional investment in this film and the series is going to be wasted. So I hope that that at least some people stay dead. Maybe not even bring back everyone that got killed when Thanos clicks his fingers. All I really want back is Spider-Man, because it's Spider-Man. Yes, I'd like Doctor Strange, but if it's for the benefit of the story and making the stakes come due, then I'm fine with Doctor Strange remaining dead. But maybe some people are going to have to stay dead, and I feel Star-Lord and Scarlet Witch are the best ones, because I feel that they've given up the will to live as it is. And I feel that neither of them would want to come back, since Scarlet Witch has lost Vision and Peter Quill has lost Gamora. So I feel both of them would want to... like, when Scarlet Witch dies, everyone else is like, no! But she's like, I've accepted it, I'm dying now. And I feel that both of them would have been like that. So, yeah. And also, about the ending, I forgot to say this earlier on, was I really liked the inclusion of Soul World, which is, of course, greatly tied into the mythos of Adam Warlock, even though he didn't make an appearance in the film. I'm really happy that with the inclusion of Soul World, and the fact that they used Gamora to basically introduce the Soul Stone. as she's had such a massive part in the comics, in the original Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity Quest and those stories, as well as in the current Infinity Countdown series, where she's been searching for the Soul Stone. And I really like how they tied her into it. And in that way, that it's a subtle callback to the comics that I really like in this film. And like I said in my other one, this is like the most comic booky movie I've ever seen, because it's like I didn't watch any trailers, so I never thought they were gonna have Nidavellir in it. I never thought in my wildest dreams that would ever be in a MCU movie. Like, just when I realized, when Thor said he was going, I was like, oh, because I heard rumors that he was going to get a new axe, but it's just, that was what, it's just little things like that. And the bringing back of the Red Skull, who, fun fact, was played by The Walking Dead's Ross Marquand, and he pretended to be Danai Gurira's guest on the premiere so that he could get in. I really like the inclusion of the Red Skull in the sort of spirit, like halfway between death and spirit form, and it's kind of, it just ties in with the allure of the Infinity Stones and them being extremely random, essentially, and them being mystical but also explained by the in-universe science as well, and that how they did that. Basically, I'm rambling. I'm trying to think of what. Oh, I really like the Black Order, and Ebony Maw, or the Maw in the film, is my favourite, and I think they did absolutely brilliantly. And as soon as he came on screen and you hear his voice, I was like, that's how I envisioned his voice, and it was perfect. Like, this whole movie is exactly how I would, when I was saying stuff over years that I wanted in this, I said for ages, I was saying I would be upset if Thanos doesn't end the film clicking his fingers and people being wiped out. They did that. They basically did everything I would want and would do, and how they did the battles and split everyone up is exactly how I would have done it. And that's why this is my favourite comic book movie, because it's what I want from a comic book movie, and in that way. And yes, I was surprised all the way through it, and that's the brilliance of it. I wanted this stuff to happen, but I never thought they would do it, and then they do it throughout the film, and then that is just how brilliant the film is. I saw this a second time on Friday, and even then I was on the edge of my seat, especially the bit when they're trying to get the gauntlet off Thanos. That is one of my all-time favourite MCU scenes, and I really like how it's Iron Man. They make the point of Iron Man going, Peter, you need to calm down. We need to get this off, since it's a massive callback to in Civil War, when Cap's like, cool down, Stark, when Stark finds out that his mum was killed by Bucky. I thought it was a brilliant callback to that. And now the last of the questions were sent in, and then I'll be looking at some of the comments from this one. This was, why did no one contact Captain Marvel before this? I think either they tried and she didn't come, or two, she's fighting with the Kree and they're only going to bring her back. They were like only going to do it. In Nick Fury's logic, they would only bring her back, I mean, if it was like, this is a universal event, and that warrants her being called in. Whereas even in Avengers and Age of Ultron, that's way below her pay grade, essentially. Whereas with this is ginormous. Nick Fury doesn't even know what's going on, but half the world has disappeared, and he's smart enough to know that. So that's why I feel that how they can justify her not being in the MCU and her going off and fighting for the Kree. And that's why I feel they're going to do with their explanation why she hasn't been in the MCU yet. And you know Kevin Feige, you know he thought this out and thought that people would ask these questions, so there'll be an explanation in Captain Marvel, and I don't think it's a plot hole at all. And also about the after credit, I only realised this the second time, but Nick Fury mentions Clint Barton and is like, "Oh, get Clint here." So I feel that it's going to be Captain Marvel, Ant-Man, and Hawkeye team up. Hopefully get rid of Captain Marvel because she's too OP. We just want the cool guys, Hawkeye and Ant-Man, to go and fight Thanos because that's what everyone wants. So that would be cool. And now I'm going to read some of the comments on this. Sorry. I can't get the comments up. I'll just show you my poster with Gamora on, which I was talking about. This is really awkward. I can't get them up. Oh, here it is. Yeah, Sentinel agreed about Thanos being the best villain because he believes that he's right. And yeah, Archivist, yeah, it would be cool if they did make Hela Lady Death, but I feel they filled the spot that they would have used her for with the Red Skull in these films. Yeah, I think there must be a spaceship somewhere that Tony and Nebula can use to get back, and because they're not going to strand them there because then they'll die, and eventually. So I don't think that'll happen. And yeah, I do think Sentinel that Gamora may play a big part in part 2. But I also think Loki will. So what I'd really like is either in part 2 or if there's another 4 standalone movie, that he like imagines Loki being there. But I do feel that I don't think Gamora is going to come back to life because Thanos can't, because it cancels out what like I said, with the Infinity Gauntlets. In order to, even if you were going to use it, you have to kill someone, so you can't then use it to bring someone back. So I think she's going to stay dead, but I could see him visiting Soul World to see her, if that makes sense. So I feel that could be a route to them being in it. Oh, Weed Les Play. Thanks. We are all trash. And Infinity War is as bad as Your Dick. No, because Infinity War is a massive scope movie and Your Dick's obviously small. So it's not like Infinity War because Infinity War is huge and universe spanning. So yeah. Thanks for watching, and thanks to all the people that commented and in my previous video for this.